So the next thing we'll want to do is actually take our timer values and surface it inside of the pop-up. So we'll go to our HTML and we'll have to add in an ID of time. And now that we have this reference, we'll head back to our pop-up and we'll actually get a reference to the time itself. So do another constant time equals document get element by ID time. And when we update this time, what we want to do actually is create a separate function that gets called by a set interval. Since this timer time should actually update every 1 second, we actually need a active timer inside of the pop-up to make sure that this updates. So we'll create a new function. We'll call it update time. And inside, all we'll do is set the time text content to equal to timer, or result.timer. And we actually need to do that storage check. So chrome.storage.local.get the timer, set the callback, the results, and we'll move all of this code in. So we'll get a reference to that time element and set the text content to be the result of our timer value. And we actually need to create our set interval now. So we'll do set interval update time, and we'll do this every second. And we'll also call updates time right at the start so that our value is always updated as soon as I open the pop-up. So if we open our pop-up again, we can see this timer value is at 7, but it's not incrementing because we actually haven't started the timer. But if we start the timer, we'll notice that it starts incrementing. And if we reset the timer, it goes back to 0, and we can start it up again. So our basic functionality for the timer is working, but this number is actually incorrect because what we want to do is have it count down from 25. We don't actually want the timer to go from 0 up to 25. We want it to go from 25 down to 0. So we'll have to do a bit of math to get the values to look the way that we want them to look. And the first thing we want to do is start by counting the number of minutes. And the way we do that would be to create a minutes variable. The amount of minutes left is going to equal to 25 minus our timer value. So this is our timer value in seconds. And all we have to do is divide it by 60. Since, for example, if our timer value was at 120 seconds divided by 60, that would give us 2. So 23 minutes would be left on the clock. Dividing by 60 gives us the number of minutes out of the number of seconds. Now, to get the number of seconds, what we want to do is actually use the mod function. So do mod 60, which will give us the remainder. So if res.timer was 121 seconds, then this would give us 1 second. If 1 second has passed in addition to 2 minutes, then what we would want to show up on our clock is 22:59. So we should actually do a 60 minus res.timer in order to get the seconds to be correct. What we'll do is also use a template string here. We can do our minutes, then colon seconds. And we'll save that and see how it looks. Okay, so it looks like we have this really long decimal here already on our minutes, which is not ideal. And it's actually cutting off the rest of our timer value. And if we actually start the timer, okay, yeah, we get these odd decimal values. So what we'll probably want to do actually, instead of just dividing like this, is we'll want to do a math.stealing so that we round that value and it's not this really ugly decimal number. So open this up again and we'll see that it is 24:51. And we can start the timer and it starts counting down in seconds, which is exactly what we want. And in order to actually test out the functionality, we'll want to reset our timer. Okay, so it looks like things are already a little off, because when we reset our timer, we don't want it to say 2560. We want it to say 2500, right, for 25 minutes. And this would actually be 26 minutes, which isn't correct. So it seems like the bug here is when res.timer is 0, then 0 mod 60 will be equal to 0, and seconds will be equal to 60, which we don't actually want. In order to fix this, we might have to actually directly check to make sure that in the case where mod 60 is equal to 0, then we set it directly to be 0, 0. And one way to do that would be to let seconds be a default value of 0, 0. And then we'll say if timer mod 60 is not equal to 0. So that means this value is like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or just any value that's not 0. Then we'll reassign the value of seconds to equal to 60 minus res.timer mod 60. Okay, and we'll save that, and hopefully it looks a little better. So that looks good. If we start the timer, see it starts counting down properly, which is great. And just to continue to test this a bit more, what we can actually do is in here, for testing purposes, we'll set res.timer equals to something like, we'll say 24 minutes. So we'll do 60 seconds times 24, just to see that the values look proper at a lower time. So if we open this up again, see we have 1 minute left on the clock. This does look correct. I think we probably want to add some padding to this actually, because we want a 0 in front of here, so it looks a little better, so that, you know, it doesn't go from 25 down to like a single digit. It should be like 0, 1, so that the clock face always looks consistent. And the way we can do that actually is by wrapping this inside of a string. So you do something like this instead of the template string, and then you can do a pad start which allows us to define how long we want the string to be. So for example, if we want the string to always be at least a length of 2, we would set pad start to 2, and then we would have a filler value of string 0, meaning that if this string is only a single digit long, like 1, then it'll pad the beginning with a 0 value. But if it's already 2 digits, like 25, it won't bother padding. So we can save this and open this up, and we'll see that it does get padded properly. And it's pretty likely that the seconds value will also need some padding as well. We can add a value like 55 to see how that looks. And yep, exactly. There's no padding, so it just goes down to 5, which looks a little awkward on our clock. So we can just add that in to here as well. 2 and 0. Save this. Open it again, and our values are looking a lot better. So I'll get rid of this hard coding, and we can look at the timer and actually start it. And it looks like things are running pretty well. We can reset it to 25, start it back up, and yeah, looking pretty good. So the very last thing we need to do is actually send a notification to the user when this timer is up. Because currently, we don't really do anything when it hits 0. So go to our background script, and we can remove this console.log now. And what we want to do is create an if timer. And we'll check if it's equal to 25 minutes, so 60 times 25, then this dot registration, we'll do dot show notification, and we'll give it a title of Pomodoro timer, and pass in an object to body, and we'll say 25 minutes has passed. And for the icon, we'll just do our usual icon.png. And when the timer expires, what we probably want to do is set our timer value to 0. So we reset our timer, and we actually want to pause our timer as well. So we'll set is running equal to false, and we'll have to give is running a default value of equal to true, just so that the variable can be reassigned. And then we'll set is running as well, set of our storage. And in order to test this functionality, just for the time being, we can probably change the default value of our timer. So we'll just say if the timer is equal to 1 minute, then we should show this notification. Or not even a minute. We should probably do like something like if timer is equal to 10, if 10 seconds pass. So refresh this, open this, and see our timer is counting down. Oh, and actually, since when you, okay, so an important thing to note is when you refresh this timer, we'll notice that the timer value, it still reads the old timer variable. It doesn't actually reset it in storage. So that's important to keep in mind because our timer value is way past 10 at this point. So we actually have to reset our timer and then have it count down to 2450 in order for it to display the notification, because that's when the timer value will actually equal to 10. And you can see 25 minutes has passed, and it actually also it reset the timer there. And yeah, so looks like our notifications are working properly. And I'll just set this back to 60 times 25